Well, we have the former Senator Andre Worrell is here with us, and I put him in, and I didn't even give him a warning. That was a mistake. That was a mistake.
That's not a problem.
That's fine. But I saw that you were all smiles watching the girls. Listen, you used to do any food challenges when you were growing up, and as a boy, you used to have these food challenges at school or church.
Nothing as intense as what I saw there just now. I think we would have enjoyed that. So no one would give us the opportunity to actually eat all of those cookies and stuff like that. So we would have enjoyed that.
You would have had to share it with your brothers and sisters, right?
Not necessarily. If I could get it eaten myself.
Eating us. Well, it's good to them to have good, clean fun. They're all being promoted to either third form or fourth form, and I'm very, very happy for them. Well, former Senator Andre Worrell is here, and he's going to be talking to us about some migrant issues. We're seeing some challenges right here in Barbados, and I know you started 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to discuss some of those challenges with us, and then we saw all the drama in the newspaper in the current media, and only a couple of days ago. So I'm just going to give you the floor and just let you go ahead and educate us.
Okay, thanks, Marcy, and good evening to all of the viewers. Now, I think it is just happened to for everything fall into place because we have been dealing with the migrant issues for a couple of weeks on the
Yes,
show and
yes,
highlighting the challenges and where it does not work, and also bringing the world view, highlighting the issues in South Africa where the South Africans are having issues with migrants being in the country, and they gave them a deadline until the 30th of June to leave. Some persons have been leaving. The government is now working with the people of South Africa to assess the status of the
yes,
persons there, giving the police the authority to assess the status of persons in South Africa, because you want a control situation. And the South Africans have obviously been crying out because they recognize a number of migrants have come to the country. They're finding difficulties getting jobs in their own country, and it has also diluted the quality of pay for the jobs. And now dropped in our laps the front page of the Sunday Sun on
mm-hmm.
just last Sunday, and all that would have transpired from last Wednesday. But I want Barbadians to know that a lot of what you see in Barbados is choreographed and curated for our viewing pleasure, because those things would not have made it to the front page of the paper unless it had gone through the big works minister. Never forget that statement. All big works in this country must go through who? And I'm certain that the viewers know who. And the fact that it is happening and it has been highlighted, it does not mean that the issue is being dealt with. It does not mean that it is a surprise to them. It does not mean it's a situation that they did not know anything about, because we warned them of this situation happening. And as you traverse Barbados, you can see it happening. And I also want to remind the public that in 2008, when the Democratic Labour Party came to office, after the Barbados Labour Party was in for over 14 years from 1994 to 2008, we found similar conditions where migrant workers in Barbados, at that time, it was mostly Guyanese, were being exploited. They were being forced to live in very inhumane living conditions. As I mentioned before on the show, with persons living in chicken pens and pig pens that were reconfigured to house persons. And that was one of the reasons why we had a number of undocumented workers in Barbados. And the then Prime Minister Thompson at the time said that we need to fix this situation. And we need to know how many migrant workers are in Barbados, how many immigrants are in Barbados, and have them legalized so that the government would know, because there are a number of implications in this situation. You have health challenges. If you have persons in a country and they're living in conditions which are unsanitary, it can cause the spread of disease within those conditions. Things like scabies, a number of different disease. Look, just the other day we had scarlet fever. Where did that come from? In Barbados, being in
Mhm.
a student population, all of these are things that you need to consider because these are diseases that are not common. Scarlet fever, in particular, not common within the Barbadian population because of our immunization and vaccination program. So, where did it come from all of a sudden? And these are things that you need to be mindful of. So, that was a package that was dropped there, and I hope that Barbadians that their eyes are open to what is really happening in this country and realize that this government leaves a lot of information out. I see that you have the video there to share because I remembered, and I also it took me down memory lane when I saw the article in the paper because when we debated the immigration bill in October of last year, because remember from the 1st of October 2025, this
Yes,
government made it legal for CARICOM nationals to come to Barbados to seek jobs without having to obtain a work permit, that they
yes,
can come and they can stay and they can find jobs. And when we debated that in the Senate in October, I think it was the 22nd of October, 2025, one of the things that I mentioned was the standard, and I also mentioned um, the need for workers on construction sites to have the same standard of pay immigrant workers as local workers, because as a result of that, it was chasing away a number of Barbadians from the construction site, and they were not being able to get jobs. And I remember being challenged in the Senate by the leader of government, business Senator Lisa Cummings, making it seem as though it was given inaccurate information because
yes,
I said that we need to have the procedures in place for the labor department and for someone to uphold the standard. And I was told that the government had put provisions in place for labor officers to do those inspections. But here we are in June, July 2026, and you see that the said government has fallen short because from the article, I understand that they were inspected in December, but by June or July, it had gotten worse, and there were numerous complaints for it. Now, we know that our labor department in Barbados is not adequately staffed and that they do not respond as quickly as they ought to complaints from Barbadians, far less complaints from immigrants. And
yes.
this puts a very nasty stain on the country. Thankfully, none of those persons were CARICOM nationals from the nationalities
Yes,
called. But what if it was a Jamaican? What if
yes.
it was Guyanese living in that condition? What if it was persons from St. Vincent living in those conditions? What would the Prime Minister say to her other?
Yeah, I mean, they just had the CARICOM meeting. Do you want us to play this video right now?
Yes, please, you can.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Dave. Thank you so much.
I think that if we want this regional integration process to work, one standard which we must set is that if we have a standard of pay across a sector, that standard of pay must be maintained and the conditions of service must be maintained regardless of the nationality of the persons doing the job, so that you will not have
heard from the Ministry of Labor, and even in the course of this debate, it is not, the honorable member must not begin to mislead the House when corrected, then attempt to dig down on it, but change the focus of what he was saying originally. Mr. President, the monitoring of persons who are looking at construction sites has also been announced as part of those interventions, including in the debate in the other place on this same bill, Mr. President, where it was announced that the the capacity of the Ministry of Labor to monitor sites and to monitor workplaces was going to be expanded.
Thank you, Senator Cummings.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Cummings, for confirming everything that I said and intended to say with regard to the construction industry, because she said it was going to be done. She said also that it did happen, and my point that I made is that we have no way of policing it until we have the labor officers in place, which she just confirmed that they're not yet in place. Listen, sip some St. Lucie brown water and just chill.
Listen, listen, the parliament, listen, the lower house, upper house, not the same anymore. Not the same anymore since you guys are you guys not there. Not the same anymore. That's funny. But an important point that you were making. But over to you, Senator Worrell, former Senator Worrell.
Exactly. And it shows that this government is very good of trying to control the narrative in this country, and
Yes,
they will attack you and they will go after you if you say something that they do not want being said, as Senator Cummings did, to try to give the narrative that the impression that these inspections were happening and the government had the capacity to do it. And here we
yes,
are in 2026, nearly a whole year later, and the government has fallen short in terms of their capacity to inspect these sites. And I am telling you that this is just one that was highlighted, but there are probably a whole lot more going across this country, not only in the construction sites, but you also need to look at the nursing homes as well. You need to look into the agricultural sector. You need to look into the gas stations. You need to
yes,
look into a number of different places in Barbados to see where migrant workers are being victimized, and it is going to put a very nasty stain on the reputation of Barbados. Remember when Qatar was preparing for the FIFA World Cup? And
yes.
you had the stories of the migrant workers, the way how they were treated in Qatar and other countries. We do
Mm-hmm.
not want to have a similar situation here in Barbados. And you know that if they're bringing in these migrant workers and putting them to work under such conditions, it means that they're obviously doing it because they intend to pay them less. And in the
Yes.
same article you read that monies were being deducted from their salaries for cleaning the facilities, money was being deducted from their salaries for airfare, and also a fee was being deducted just in case that they left, an insurance fee in case they left the job site before the contract period had ended. I also made a point in that same debate in 2025 that I had heard of stories where a number of contractors would submit bids to pay their general workers, because the standard pay in Barbados for a general worker on a construction site is roughly
Mm-hmm.
between $75 to $100. And many of
Yes.
them will
Per day.
submit per day. Many of
Mm-hmm.
them will submit bids to pay workers at that salary, but end up paying far less,
Oh,
$60 or
yes.
less than that, right? And I was
Wow.
told that that would not happen. That's how we got to the conversation about the Labor Department inspecting these construction sites and adhering to the contracts as well. But no, we know that is not happening. I am
But
hoping that Barbadians, go ahead.
no, no, complete your thought,
I'm
and I'm going to
hoping that
make.
Barbadians does not allow this to fall on deaf ears, but we pursue this matter because it's also impacting on Barbadian workers as well. That is why the Barbados Workers Union was there doing it in the first place. This didn't just come about by chance or because of the goodness and the graciousness of the General Secretary, the Barbados Workers Union. Remember that she just lost or will soon be losing some what you call it in terms of the payments that workers
Dues,
pay,
union dues.
union dues, because of the
Yes.
incident with the C.O. Williams construction. and other
Ah,
companies in Barbados which have been closing
but
down.
you stick a pin and you come back to that because I want to hear more of that. But I don't want this to miss people. Andre, I don't want people to, the fact that I want people to realize that here was Senator at the time, Senator Andre, in the Senate, and he was making a very important point. Now, often they say, "Oh, they're just giving trouble and they just want to criticize," but don't you realize that this is what about 6 months later?
Mm-hmm.
6 or 8 months later,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
the same thing that you brought up in the Senate as an issue where you saw that this is something that the government needed to tighten up on is now a big disgrace to them, and they've created a whole drama out of it. And I want to make that point because they love to say that you guys, yourself and Mr. Thorne, and you all were just creating havoc in parliament, but when you look and you see that this was something that was very real, a real and present issue for
Mm-hmm.
Barbados, and she stood up. It's the flowery words, Barbadians, flowery, and tried to correct Andre. But look at it now. This is the issue right now, and I wanted people to not miss that. But continue, please.
Exactly. And these are the things because many of the issues that this government has led this country in, we will come to a time in this country when the underbelly of Barbados will be exposed and we will recognize all of the bad dealings that this Barbados Labour Party government has gone into to the detriment of the people of Barbados and to the reputation and the image of this country because they never follow through with their plans are never really properly thought through. No one in Barbados is opposed to immigration, but all we are saying it must be properly managed. And when we're saying it must be properly managed, it must not be done to the detriment of Barbadian workers. And what we are seeing happening now is that Barbadian workers are the ones who are suffering, the ones who are getting the short end of the stick in every single way because they're not thinking it through. You can't just open up your doors to people and say, come, there's space here, fill it. You have to take in consideration how are you going to feed these people? How are you going to take care of their medical needs? How are you going to educate them and their children? Can
Yes.
you afford to pay them and pay Barbadians a salary that they can afford to live off of, given the high cost of living in this country? Look, just on Sunday, I believe it was, when people were expecting the gas prices to go down, you just heard sweet words in the budget. But then on Sunday, the gas prices gone up at a time for liquefied petroleum gas, which is the bottled gas that you use to cook with, and it has gone up from $60, from $160 for the 100 pound to $180. That's by $20 more. At a time when
Wow.
majority of Barbadians would be looking to purchase that to prepare items to sell for a crop over. So this
But
government
hold a
knows.
minute. But I thought that they were going to cushion these price increases because they and the reason she gave was that she has to use all the resources to cushion the fuel price increases so that she's not able to do anything for the 60th. We can't celebrate the 60th because she has to put the resources to buffer. The word is to buffer. So
Mhm.
where is that buffer?
But you know the election was in January, which has passed. It's not in January that is coming. So she will
Yes,
say anything no.
I love it.
But the votes are already
Gone, yeah.
gone.
They're
And they have
gone.
They have 5 years to play with. So, and you know what they say, that we have short memory. So by the time of now and the next election, we will not remember a single word about buffering the energy prices, because you're putting it on our backs. You expected a reduction in the fuel prices at the pump as well, but what, you got 15 cents and then it was taken off? Nothing, right? And still, and you know what? The gas prices on the international market were coming down. They
Mm-hmm.
were coming down. We don't know what it would be like tomorrow, but they were coming down at that time, right? But going back to immigration, we as a country, we really need to pay attention to how we are managing this immigration process. It is not working out for Barbadians. A number of you have a construction boom happening in the country, but when you go on it, it is not employing a number of young Barbadians. And they're not finding it easy to get jobs in other territories as well, because other countries are closing their doors. Antigua, last month announced that they will be changing the requirements for work permits in the country so that
Really?
to protect workers in Antigua. So you understand that? So everybody else is doing things to protect their citizens and the workers and their citizens, but Barbados is saying no, every is a free for all for everybody to come. And yet still you cannot get jobs, and the jobs that you are getting, you cannot afford to pay for things in the supermarket. You cannot afford to pay your rent. You cannot afford to get a house, because this government has really not built any low income housing solutions. All of these things matter. And all know people, up to yesterday, heard at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, there's a rush in terms of the accident and emergency because of the respiratory cases, and they're asking you not to turn up to accident and emergency and use the other services available. Does this sound like a country that has the capacity to deal with an unlimited amount of migrant workers? It does not. And Barbadians are suffering. And you're saying you're not getting jobs. You're seeing an increase in the crime rate. You're seeing more young people, because they're so turned off, turn into using drugs and other things, because the reality is that they need some form of escape, but this government is not providing any solutions for them. Yes, we might have a football match between now and November. I really
Mm-hmm.
would like to understand why we cannot celebrate the 60th anniversary of independence in this country. We really need to know what is the true um, economic figure that we have, because you heard just a couple of weeks ago, well, last week, that the tourist arrival numbers for December were inaccurate, and the statistical
Yes.
department put out the information. They take the blame. When it's a problem, the civil servants take the blame, but the politicians never come forward to face the music. And I would like to say, do not blame the labor officers for this situation. They did not cause it to happen, because they could not go on any of those sites unless the minister authorized them to go. And even if they went and they did a report, unless the minister action gave authority for action to be taken on that report, it would be a hush hush matter in this
Mm,
country. That is how big works operate in this country. Remember, all big works go through who in this country,
yeah.
and that is the way how it operates.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying there makes so much sense. Everybody is seeking to crack down on this whole migration issue so that they can take care of their own people. It's all over Europe. We
Mhm.
know, of course, the US, and you were now saying Antigua. I didn't even realize it was happening right here in Antigua. And this Dave has something here, that modern day slavery in migrant labor markets. And there's an important point you raised at the beginning: the impact this could have on tourism.
Mhm.
When migrant laborers come to Barbados and they are put in very, very horrible conditions, when this gets out internationally, it could be very, very bad for the country. Remember, even you talk about Qatar, but remember Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
when all that came out, all the news that came out that the city was built, it's beautiful, but it was at the expense of these um you
Migrant
know
labor
migrant laborers who are
exploited.
living exploited. Yeah.
Mhm. Right, and these are things that you really need to take into consideration. Another thing that it also affects too, customer service.
How is
Because,
that?
okay, you have a number of persons who are working in our gas stations, and they're working in other areas as well too, on migrant laborers, and they're taking away jobs from the locals. And the locals who do work in those areas, they're working for less money. So you're coming to work already with a problem. What sort of customer service do you think you'll deliver? Being realistic. And then, as I said to you, it goes into other fields as well. The nursing homes in Barbados. There are a number of migrant laborers working in these nursing homes who are being subjected to conditions that Barbadians cannot work under. They want them to work additional time in these nursing homes without the pay and at very short notice. And the Barbadians are being pushed out of these jobs because if the migrant worker will stay on until 2 hours later or come to work at short notice because they don't have any children to get to school or anything like that, their children are back in their country being taken care of by their grandparents and stuff like that. But the Barbadian worker who has to make sure that her son or daughter gets to school or that somebody's home when the son or daughter comes home and prepares dinner for them and legitimately cannot stay, they're being treated as though they're not good workers and they're being terminated from their jobs. So eventually you will have a situation where it's going to impact on the level of customer service that you see in the gas stations, in the supermarkets, in the hotel sector, because they're going into a number of different places. And like you said, it will ruin the reputation of this country. So people are looking to see how less they can pay and how much they can save from their wage bill, but they're not looking down the line to see how it would impact on productivity, the quality of the work, and the quality of the service which is being delivered. And if you have a situation where Barbadians are not getting decent work in their own country, you will have problems down the line. I am telling you that.
Yes, yes. Well, we have another 2 minutes, and I'm looking to see if there are any questions or comments. I think people are very much, agreeing with a lot of what you are saying. And Dave has found the article here. Antigua and Barbuda tightens work permit rules to prioritize local hiring. Yes, this is Friday, June 12th, 2026.
We would love to see some of that happening here in Barbados because you see work permits coming in for jobs that Barbadians can do. Um, Security jobs. We are training persons in the hospitality industry. A number of jobs that Barbadians can do. You want tell me what qualifications do you need to pack car parts in a warehouse? And what sort of state of art where facility do you have that a Barbadian is not able to operate in that facility that you need to get a work permit to bring in someone? And it's an organized situation in this country, and it is making it harder for Barbadians to get jobs.
Yes. Well, we have a minute. They watch the show because I can tell you, I see some responses from the Minister of Agriculture,
Mhm.
and Chantel Monroe Knight, and I could tell you, they watch the show or they assign somebody to watch the show. If government is watching tonight, what you have a minute? What can you say to them?
Well, I can say to them, I told you so, and that they really need to come clean with the people of Barbados, and they need to put the information out there that Barbadians need. We cannot go headlong into this migrant worker situation at the detriment of Barbadians. So you need to put Barbadians first and save this country from going down the wrong road.
Yes. Well said. Well said. Always good. I just love the way you speak. The words just flow out of your mouth. I love it. I love to listen. Packed with information that you shared tonight, also on what David Thompson had to do. I remembered that because I was living
Mhm.
here when he came in trying to clean up what they did. And then
But
it
when
came
you
up for xenophobia. You remember that?
exactly when they try to repackage it now, they try to repackage it now as though we did not care for our CARICOM nationals, but we cared for
Yes.
them so much that we did not want them to be exploited. We told them it is better for you to leave and come back through the correct channels.
Yes.
And
Yes. And
so
everything
said,
done.
so done, they came back through the correct channels. But you had a number of persons here in Barbados being exploited. And these are things that you also have to look on the human rights and the trafficking of persons list as well. We don't want Barbados to get into that situation. Imagine what
Yes.
would happen with young women coming to Barbados seeking work, can't find the work, and then being forced into prostitution. That's all of that could happen.
Awful. Well, we're hoping that in the next 2 weeks or so you'll be able to join us and continue. I would love to hear more about the human rights and some of those violations, possible violations, and how that could affect us internationally. Because I tell you, that's the only thing that they want to listen to, and we need to bring that. Wait, I think something is coming through. Well, thank you so much, Andre. Thank you. It was very informative as usual. Thank you. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Marcia.
Yes. Bye bye.